From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Top of the morning, security gang. Welcome to another episode of the CyberHub Podcast, episode 946. This Thursday morning or afternoon, I'm in Israel, so it's afternoon. It's 4 p.m. here. I've already gone through a whole day of traveled, I've seen things, I've experienced stuff. And while each of you are just getting your cup of joe over in one of the best countries on the planet, these United States of America, American exceptionalism at its best, I have to say I'm 7 hours ahead of you, and I got to tell you, the future looks bright. The future does look bright. It's a joke. Dad jokes are a thing on the show. So packed show for all y'all, July 17th, 2025. We're going to get right into the show. But before we do, the last few days, I've been a really bad host. And what is that? I started a tradition on the show, and I've kind of missed out on it. And sometimes when I travel, that's the case. And that was the case on Tuesday and Wednesday as I was getting acclimated. But now that I'm finally acclimated and someone got me this like really cool espresso mug, got my double espresso, coffee cup. Cheers, y'all. Yeah. Life is good. Life is good. All right. Packed show, we're going to get into it. So we'll start off with United Natural Foods, which is the main distributor for Whole Foods, which is owned by Amazon, right? So to say Amazon's Whole Foods was an independent company bought by Amazon several years ago. Amazon found out that Whole Foods is kind of better than Uber, which everyone thought they were going to buy Uber. They ended up buying Whole Foods. Way, way better move there. So the June 2025 cyber attack that caused disruption in business operation will end up costing the company anywhere between $350 to $400 million this fiscal year. Let me repeat that. $350 to $400 million with a net loss income of anywhere between $50 to $60 million, which includes the estimated tax impact and adjusted EBITDA by approximately $40 to $50 million. This is a business update published yesterday. These estimates don't reflect the benefit of anticipated insurance proceeds, which the company expects will be adequate for the incident, meaning taking care of forensics, restoration, getting the business up online. But in that time period, the business interruption cost $350 to $400 million in net sales. And when you think of what happened to Marks and Spencer, these numbers are now starting to align in terms of the actual cost to breach. This actual cost to breach now is $350 to $400 million. And as you're getting ready for your third quarter board meetings or your fourth quarter budgeting, this now has to be something you're circulating around as a practitioner. And I don't care what you are. You're a CISO or you're an analyst, right? And anything in the middle. The evangelization of cybersecurity requires it to be at the very, excuse me, there, at the very bottom level of the business, all the way to the very, very top. So as a CISO, when I see this number today, I look at it and go, this is likely going to be a conversation starter with my board. Meaning when I meet my board, they're likely going to ask, we've seen Marks and Spencer, now we're seeing United Natural Foods. What would our impact be? What's our study like? And that's something that, we often don't talk about, but recovery cost of losing business in that time frame, you can't really estimate it until it actually happens, because you don't really know how many customers will leave you. And in our history, that data hasn't really been public, but now we know the actual cost. The company in an SEC filing on June 9th said it detected unauthorized activity on some of its IT systems on June 5th. It's United Natural Food Services advertises itself as the largest full-service grocery partner in North America. It delivers products to over 30,000 locations, including natural product, superstore, conventional supermarket chains, e-commerce providers, and even independent retailers. It does $30 billion in annual revenue. So when you think of the $350 to $400 million, that's not even that doesn't even scratch 1% of their annual revenue, just around 1% of their annual revenue, if you're really pushing it. The company offers more than 250,000 natural, organic, and conventional SKUs through more than 50 distribution centers. So the company is now updating its outlook for the year, and it doesn't look good. But they're not the only food provider on our show today. Co-op, the UK grocery store, is now reporting that 6.5 million members' data was stolen in their April data breach. And now both of these are kind of attributed to Scattered Spider in some form or fashion. A co-op, short for the Cooperative Group, is one of UK's largest consumer cooperatives operating food stores, funeral services, insurance, and legal services. It's owned by millions of members who receive discounts on services and share in the company's governance. The co-op CEO, Shireen Kauri-Hack, apologized on the BBC Breakfast Show, confirming that the attackers successfully stole the data for all of its 6.5 million members. Now, I'll say this. Props for her. As the CEO of the co-op, from the very, very beginning, I didn't like one of her earlier statements, and I kind of gave her a lesson on it on one of our previous shows. But I will give credit where credit is due. And where credit is due is to the fact that she stepped up. She is accepting responsibility. She's letting people know that they've had access to their data. So I give props for that, because a lot of times companies hide behind kind of blank statements, and then they kind of want it to kind of go away. So we'll see that. Well, the Dragon Force ransomware, sorry, it's not Scattered Spider, it's Dragon Force ransomware operator about the co-op, who confirmed one of its affiliates was behind the attack, sharing data samples with the BBC. I love how the BBC's just going about it. I mean, my Lord, they have that there. But obviously, we continue to see the actual cost here. 6.5 million victims of this data breach in the UK is significant. And again, they had massive disruption. I mean, they had empty shelves at their stores because of this. Again, kind of going to the challenges there. We move to China, where the Taiwanese semiconductor industry is becoming a real target of spear phishing campaigns by the Chinese state-sponsored threat actors. Targets of these campaigns range from organizations involved in manufacturing, design, and testing of semiconductors and integrated circuits, wider equipment and services supply chain entities within the sector, as well as some financial investment analysts specializing in the Taiwanese semiconductor market, according to Proofpoint. The activity, according to Proofpoint, took place between March and June of this year. It's been attributed to 3 Chinese-aligned clusters: UNK Fist Bump, Drop Pitch, and Sparky Carp. So these guys are targeting various aspects of the semiconductor industry. As we've noted above, the use of Voldemort is being attributed to a threat actor called TA416, and Voldemort and Cobalt Strike is some of the tools they're using. They send these spear phishing campaigns with a purported resume that is an LNK file that masquerades as a PDF. It then triggers a multi-stage sequence that either leads to the deployment of Cobalt Strike or Voldemort. Simultaneously, a decoy document is displayed to the victim to avoid raising any sort of suspicion. So the rogue DLL, which is part of the drop pitch modus operandi, is a backdoor codename HealthKick that's capable of executing commands, capturing the results of those runs, and even exfiltrating them to a C2 server. In another attack by Dropitch detected in late May of this year, the same DLL sideloading approach has been used to spawn a TCP reverse shell that establishes contact with a VPS server over port 465. So again, you see the sophistication of how they go about this from the Chinese side. You can't underestimate them. We'll get into the Chinese here in just a second, a little bit more on the regulatory side of that, but you see that there. Cloudflare, for their end, are squashing speculation that it was a cyber attack or BGP hijack that caused the recent 1.1.1.1 resolver service outage. Cloudflare is now explaining in their post-mortem that the incident was caused by, guess what? An internal misconfiguration. I love how people always kind of revert to cyber attacks, and it's really easy clickbait, and you're scrolling through your feed on LinkedIn or anywhere else, and it's like, Cloudflare, cyber attack, bam. And then it just turns out to be Bob. And I'm sorry for all the Bobs out there, or Dave, or James. And they kind of made a mistake. And there was a misconfiguration. And it caused an outage. And that's unfortunate. But that's part of technology. Now, would we want companies to be more diligent when doing these updates? Absolutely. Is it feasible? In most cases. Can AI help? I don't see a reason why not. But is everything a cyber attack? Nope. It's kind of like not everything's a conspiracy theory. Never. Whenever people talk to me, and because of my military experience, people always say, like, do you think? And I go, never underestimate incompetence. Never underestimate incompetence. Yeah, conspiracy is fun. Kind of go down the rabbit hole on X or whatever other platforms do kind of you spend time on. What's the other one? Blue Sky, whatever it is. And then you kind of end up coming full circle, and you go, incompetence. Never underestimate incompetence. Incompetence is significant, folks. So we now have that post-mortem. Speaking of incompetence, the Senate Intelligence Committee on Tuesday approved an annual intelligence authorization bill that's aiming to augment defenses against digital espionage campaigns like the recent Salt Typhoon breach. The measure is aiming to prevent compromise of U.S. telecoms through strengthening network security by, guess what? Someone at the Senate's been listening to the show. Establishing baseline cybersecurity requirements for vendors of telecommunication services. But to everyone in to the country's we have 18 intelligence agencies in this country. I thought there were only 2 or 3. Apparently there's 18 intelligence agencies in this country. 18. Last year, the Biden administration and members of the intelligence panel suggested the dangers posed by Salt Typhoon should spur a regulatory push for minimum cybersecurity standards that telecom companies must adhere to. How about we do basic minimum cybersecurity standards for all critical infrastructure in one bill and pass it and say, if you're not compliant with it, then we send the federal authorities after you. See, to me, that's a great incentive. It's a great incentive. It helps. If you want to talk about saving our economy money, the hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars we are losing to cybercrime, this would be a great measure to actually put a dent in cybercrime. Because now you're forcing companies to go out and get effective cyber defenses, because otherwise they're going to have to appear in front of a Senate Judiciary Committee or a Senate Intelligence Committee or a cybersecurity subcommittee, and those are not fun. The Intelligence Committee's bill also shores up counterintelligence risks posed by compromise of U.S. telecom infrastructure created by Salt Typhoon. The most classified measure authorizes billions of dollars in spending by U.S. intelligence agencies, but sets funding levels for intelligence-related efforts. It sets funding levels for those, and it provides policy guidance to the element. And here's what happened. For those, let me break down bureaucracy here for just a moment before we get into all the patches y'all need to pay attention to. Here's what happened here. Salt Typhoon happened. They did a likely behind closed doors NSA, CIA, FBI type of briefing over the breach with CISA and everyone else. And they all said, well, we get X amount of money, but that money goes to funding all these things. And really what would help us is to make sure that we can, get more funding for cyber stuff, because that would really help us avoid stuff like this happening. So money, please. And like that famous scene in Parks and Rec, if you haven't seen it, money, please. And so they went to the Senate Intelligence Committee, who's like, sure, we'll shore up, we'll create minimum standards, and then we'll fund it and give you money to go out and do it. There's your bureaucracy for you. All right. Speaking of Salt Typhoon, Cisco just can't seem to avoid critical severity vulnerabilities in their identity services engine and their passive identity connector that could lead to remote code execution. So Cisco, no stranger to Salt Typhoon, by the way. They were one of the main technology providers that's been a victim of Salt Typhoon. 2 new CVEs coming into play here, CVE 2025-20281 and 20282. Alerting users to a maximum severity rating, a perfect 10s on these guys. So you want to make sure you get these updated. The security defects impacts versions 3.3 and 3.4, and were addressed in versions 3.3 patch 7 and 3.4 patch 2. So you want to make sure you get those addressed. Multiple Fortinet FortiWeb instances recently infected with web shells are believed to have been compromised using some public exploits from a recently patched RCE, that's a remote code execution flaw tracked as CV 2025-25-25-7. Lots of 25s in there. News of the exploitation comes after threat monitoring platform Shadow Server Foundation observed 85 infections on July 14th and 77 the very next day. Researchers are reporting that the instances are believed to be compromised through this CVE. Most of these are in the US, by the way, followed by the Netherlands, Singapore, and UK. The CVE is a critical pre-authenticated RCE via SQL injection affecting FortiWeb 7.6.0 through 7.6.3, 7.4.0 through 7.4.7, and 7.4.0 through 7.4.7, and 7.0.0 through 7.0.10. So you want to make sure you get that patched up. Oracle releasing 309 security patches as part of its July 2025 critical patch update, including 127 fixes for vulnerabilities that are remotely exploitable without authentication. So if you're an Oracle customer, there's over 200 unique CVEs in their July 2025 CPU, counting 9 patches that address critical severity flaws. The same as in April, Oracle received the largest numbers of security fixes, 84 patches for it, including 50 that resolve defects exploitable remotely without authentication. Oracle's been busy addressing a hefty number of bugs in MySQL, 40 patches there. Fusion middleware, 36, and communication applications, 29. So you want to make sure you get those updated ASAP as well. An $8 billion class action investor lawsuit against Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg and company leaders, current and former, began yesterday with claims stemming from the 2018 privacy scandal involving Cambridge Analytica political consulting group. Investors alleged that Meta didn't fully disclose the risks that Facebook's users' personal information would be misused by Cambridge Analytica. So shareholders say Facebook officials repeatedly and continually violated the consent order with the FTC from 2012, which Facebook agreed to stop collecting and sharing personal data on platform users and friends without their consent. The fallout led to Facebook agreeing to pay a $5.1 billion penalty to settle the FTC charges. It also faced significant fines in Europe, reaching a $725 million privacy settlement with users there. Now, shareholders want Zuckerberg and others to reimburse Meta for the FTC fine and other legal costs, which they estimate to be around $8 billion. So privacy expert Neil Richards testified Monday morning for the shareholders. And then Jeffrey Zanes, who served on Facebook's board from 2018 to 2020, also testified that consumer privacy and user data were priorities for both management and board. We'll see how this lawsuit continues. SonicWall are saying a threat actor that may be financially motivated has been targeting their appliances with a new piece of malware, according to Google's tag, warning on Wednesday that UNC 6148 has been around since at least October of 2024, and this malware can enable data theft, extortion, and ransomware deployment. Researchers have not been able to definitively confirm that they are financially motivated, but if you have extortion and ransomware deployment and data theft, that's typically the play there. They've been targeting SonicWall's secure mobile access 100 series remote access appliances, and the group is aware of a limited number of targeted organizations, but it hasn't been able to determine what the initial access vector is, so keep your eyes on that. In Cambodia on Wednesday said that an order by Prime Minister Hun Manet for government bodies to crack down on criminal cybercrime operations being run in the country resulted in the arrest of more than 1,000 suspects this week alone. It shows you that if governments really want to, they can actually fight cybercrime. The government in Cambodia has observed that online scams are currently causing threats and insecurity in the world and the region. This is, I guarantee you, a bunch of different countries, probably the US and Europe, said, hey, how would you like us to end all aid and put you on a sanction list with North Korea unless this stops? And the Cambodians were like, I think there's something we can do about it. And lo and behold, 5 raids in 5 provinces lead to 1,000 suspects being arrested, 200 from Vietnam, 27 are Chinese, and 75 suspects are from Taiwan. 85 are actual national Cambodians. In the capital, Phnom Penh, in the southern city of Sihanoukville, police also seized equipment, computers, and hundreds of mobile phones. At least 270 Indonesians, including 45 women, were arrested in Phuket, a town on the border with Thailand, which is notorious for cyber scam and gambling operations. And 312 people, including nationals of Thailand, Bangladesh, Indonesia, Myanmar, and Vietnam, were also arrested. So you're seeing these are an international collaborative of stealing from the rest of the world. That's it for our show this morning. We'll be back on Monday, 9 a.m. Eastern, live with all the latest and greatest. Until then, go check out CyberHubPodcast.com for all the latest cybersecurity headlines. Have a great rest of your day, y'all. Have a great weekend. And most importantly, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.